Before I tell you what happened next, please let me know in the comments where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button, because what my 9-year-old daughter did next will blow your mind. My name is Kesha Vance, and I am 34 years old, living in Atlanta, working as a data analyst and raising my daughter Maya, who just turned 9. That Friday morning started out completely normal, with the coffee maker bubbling away and my laptop screen glowing softly as I scrolled through my work calendar, getting ready to pay the bills before my first virtual meeting of the day. Everything felt stable and predictable, just the way I liked it. I clicked the button to confirm payment for my online grocery order, and suddenly a bright red banner appeared across my screen saying transaction declined due to insufficient funds. That made no sense at all, because I always kept plenty of money in my checking account as a safety buffer. Feeling annoyed, I tried using my backup debit card, which was connected to my high-yield savings account, thinking maybe there was just a glitch with the first card. The same red message popped up again saying transaction declined. A cold, uncomfortable feeling started creeping up my spine, because this was not some technical error. Something was very wrong here. I immediately opened a new browser tab and went straight to my bank's website, typing in my username and password with hands that had started shaking slightly. The main dashboard loaded up on my screen, and I just stared at it, feeling my breath catch somewhere in my throat. My checking account showed a balance of $412. That could not possibly be right, because I had paid my rent just yesterday, but there should have been several $1,000s still remaining in that account. My heart started pounding hard and fast, like a drum beating against my ribs. I clicked on the tab for my savings account, which held my emergency fund and my daughter's college money and the $150,000 inheritance that my grandmother had left specifically for me. This was money I had protected fiercely because it represented Maya's entire future. The page finally loaded, and I saw the account balance showing $28.14. The word no came out of my mouth as barely more than a strangled whisper. I grabbed my phone with fingers that kept slipping on the smooth screen as I frantically dialed the customer service number for my bank. The cheerful hold music that played while I waited felt like a cruel joke. Finally, a voice answered, saying, "Thank you for calling Atlantic Trust. This is David speaking. How can I help you today?" I struggled to keep my voice steady as I explained that my name was Kesha Vance, and I was looking at my savings account online, and it was completely empty, and this had to be some kind of mistake or system error. I heard the soft sound of keyboard keys clicking, followed by a long silence that stretched my already frayed nerves to their absolute breaking point. The customer service representative finally spoke again, but his voice had changed, becoming more cautious and careful. As he said, "Miss Vance, I am showing a large wire transfer that was initiated from your account late last night." I immediately told him that I did not authorize any transfer and demanded to know where my money had gone. He explained that the transfer was for $150,000 and it had been sent to an international account located in Dubai. The word Dubai made my mind start racing, because I did not know anyone who lived in Dubai. I asked what name was listed on the authorization for this wire transfer. There was another agonizing pause before David told me that the transfer had been authorized by the secondary user on my account, whose name was Monnique Vance. Hearing my sister's name hit me like an actual physical blow. I stammered that this could not be right, because she was only listed on the account as a backup for emergencies. David calmly explained that the transfer had been authorized at 11:42 in the evening using her login credentials, and it had been authenticated through the two-factor security text message that was sent to her registered phone number. He added that the transaction was now complete, and the funds had already cleared, meaning it was irreversible from their end. I hung up the phone without even saying goodbye. The coffee cup I had been holding slipped from my numb fingers and shattered on the kitchen floor, but I did not even flinch at the sound. $150,000, my entire life savings, my grandmother's legacy. The money I had carefully set aside for Maya's private school tuition and her future and our safety net, all of it was gone. It had been stolen by my own sister. I sank down onto one of the kitchen chairs, feeling like the whole world was tilting and spinning around me. There was only one other person in the entire world who had access to that savings account. One single person I had trusted against every instinct screaming at me not to, my sister Monnique. I had added her name to my account just 3 months earlier. I could still see her standing right here in this very kitchen, with tears streaming down her beautiful face. She was 30 years old and gorgeous and charismatic, and once again she was in some kind of trouble. It was always something with Monnique, a failed business venture, a bad investment decision, a boyfriend who drained all her money. This time she insisted it was different. She told me she had a real opportunity to start her own event planning business, but her credit score was completely ruined, so she could not qualify for a startup loan. She sobbed using my childhood nickname and said, "Kiki, I just need to show the bank that I have assets backing me up. I do not actually need to use the money. If you just add my name to your savings account as a cosigner, then I can prove to the bank that I have financial support, and they will approve my loan, and then I will have them remove my name immediately afterward." I remember hesitating because I remembered the car she had totaled. I remembered the community college tuition money she had completely wasted. I remembered the countless times our parents had bailed her out of trouble. But her tears looked so genuine and real. She grabbed both my hands and whispered, "I swear on Mama's life, Kiki, I will never ever touch that money. It is just to show the bank I have backing. You are my only hope. Please help me." Like a complete fool, I believed her because I was Kesha, the responsible sister who made detailed spreadsheets for everything and paid all her bills on time and had spent her entire childhood cleaning up the messes Monnique left behind. Monnique was the golden child in our family. She got all the beauty and all the charm and that easy smile that made everyone, especially our parents, forgive her for absolutely everything. While I spent my time studying, she was out partying. While I was carefully saving money, she was spending it as fast as she could get her hands on it. Every single time she fell, our parents, Lawrence and Janice, were right there waiting to catch her writing check after check to bail her out. My mother would say Monnique just has so much passion, she just needs a little help finding her focus. My father would add that she has such a strong spirit, and you cannot break a spirit like that. But they had no problem breaking mine. My successes were simply expected. My stability was taken completely for granted. I was not the daughter they needed to worry about, so I became the daughter they simply did not think about at all. Now their golden child, their passionate, spirited daughter, had taken every single penny I had worked so hard to save, and she had disappeared. I grabbed my phone and jabbed my thumb at Monnique's contact name. I pressed the call button. The line made a clicking sound followed by a cold, automated voice announcing that the number I had dialed had been disconnected or was no longer in service. She had disconnected her phone number. This was not some terrible mistake. This was not a loan she forgot to tell me about. This was a carefully planned theft. My breathing became ragged and harsh. The room suddenly felt unbearably hot. I started pacing around the kitchen, muttering, "Okay, okay, okay," to myself as I stepped over the broken pieces of the coffee mug scattered across the floor. I decided that my parents would know something. They would have to help fix this nightmare. They were her parents too, so they could not possibly just let her do this to me. My hands were shaking so badly that it took me 3 attempts just to dial my father's number. I pressed the phone hard against my ear, listening to my heart hammer so loudly I could barely hear the ringing tone. My father answered, saying Lawrence residence hello. I said Dad in a voice that cracked with all the panic I was trying so hard to hold back. I told him it was about Monnique and that she was gone. He immediately asked me to slow down and explain what I was talking about. Where had she gone? I finally screamed, losing all control, and told him that she had taken my money. All of it, $150,000 from my savings account. She had gone to Dubai. Her phone was disconnected. She had stolen all my money. There was a heavy sigh on the other end of the line. It was not the shocked gasp I had been expecting. It was a sigh that sounded annoyed and tired. My father told me for goodness sake to stop being so dramatic, because I was going to give my mother a heart attack. I asked if he had even heard what I just said. I was now pacing around the living room, and I could hear the broken pieces of the coffee mug crunching under my shoes. I repeated that Monnique had taken all my money, $150,000, and her phone was disconnected. The line went silent for a moment, and then I heard my father let out another long, weary sigh that was full of exasperation and completely empty of any alarm or concern. My father, Lawrence, finally spoke, and his voice was dripping with tired disappointment as he told me for God's sake to stop being so dramatic because all this screaming was going to give my mother a heart attack. He said that taking was such a strong word, and he was sure Monnique just needed to borrow the money temporarily. I stopped pacing in the middle of the living room. I repeated the word borrow with complete disbelief in my voice. I told him that she did not borrow anything. She had emptied my entire savings account and fled the country to Dubai. She had not even bothered to ask me first. My father said completely unfazed that he was sure she meant to ask and that Monnique had this new business opportunity. She had been so excited about telling everyone. She probably just needed the capital money quickly, and she knew I would eventually say yes because she is my sister after all. My mouth fell open, but no sound came out. This was not the reaction of a father hearing that one of his children had just robbed the other child. This sounded like the reaction of someone who was in on the whole scheme. I asked in a dangerously low voice whether he had known about this beforehand. He snapped back defensively, saying of course he did not know, but it was not exactly a surprise either. He explained that Monnique is a go-getter who sees an opportunity and takes it without hesitation. That is how fortunes are made, he added, and I would not understand that because I was stuck in my little 9-to-5 data analyst job. I shouted back that my little job was what had paid for that money. It was the money my grandmother had left to me. A new voice cut in sharply telling me that was enough. My mother Janice must have picked up the extension phone. Her tone was sharp and scolding. She said that my sister had mentioned this plan to her last week. Apparently, Monnique had a wonderful new business opportunity with her boyfriend Chad, who seemed like a very smart and capable man. My head was spinning as I tried to process what I was hearing. I asked if she was saying that Monnique had actually told her about taking my money. My mother corrected me, saying that Monnique had told her she discussed it with me first. She said Monnique claimed I was supportive of her business venture and wanted to help my baby sister finally get her big break in life. I told them I never said anything like that. I had not even spoken to Monnique in over a week. I said, Mom, she lied to you and she stole from me. My father barked at me to watch my tone. He said that even if Monnique was a little hasty in the way she borrowed the money, it was still family business. He reminded me that I was the older sister and I had a stable job and a good head on my shoulders. I was supposed to support her because that is what family does. I thought about all the countless times I had already supported her over the years. I had paid her rent when she forgot. I had co-signed for a car loan that she immediately crashed. I had given her money for groceries that she spent on expensive designer shoes instead. I had been supporting her my entire life, and they called it being a good sister. She always called it an emergency, but this situation was completely different. She had not just borrowed a few $100s to cover a utility bill. I told my mother that she had taken every single cent I had. Maya's school tuition payment was due on Monday. Our rent was due. I had $28 left to my name. How was I supposed to support anyone with that? My mother said in that familiar dismissive tone to stop exaggerating, because I would figure it out like I always did. After all, I was the responsible one. She added that she and my father were busy and Monnique would pay me back as soon as her investment came through. She insisted it was a sure thing, so I should stop worrying and stop trying to make my sister look bad to everyone. The phone line clicked dead. They had actually hung up on me. I stood in the center of my living room, surrounded by deafening silence. They knew. They had known she was planning something. They had not tried to stop her. They had, in their own way, encouraged her to do it. They had just justified the theft of my entire life savings because my sister was a go-getter, and I was simply the responsible one who would always figure things out. I stood there with the phone still in my hand, listening to the dead air of the disconnected line. My own parents had hung up on me after telling me that my sister stealing my life savings was just a simple hasty loan, and that I, the victim, was the one being overly dramatic about the whole situation. The room was completely silent, but my mind was screaming. I could not catch my breath. I felt the floor seem to tilt beneath my feet as I stared at the blank wall, trying to process the massive scale of their betrayal. It was not just Monnique who had betrayed me. It was all of them together. They had discussed this situation. They had made a collective decision that my security and my future and my daughter's future were all less important than Monnique's latest impulsive whim. As I stood there frozen in complete disbelief, my phone suddenly buzzed in my hand. It was not an incoming call. It was an Instagram notification showing a new message request. My heart jumped for just a second, thinking maybe it was Monnique apologizing or saying it was all a terrible mistake or promising the money was coming back. But I knew she had already blocked my phone number, so why would she message me on Instagram? I opened the app. The message request was from a brand new account called Monnique Do by Adventures. My blood ran ice cold. I tapped on the notification. It was not actually a message. It was a post that she had tagged me in. The picture hit me first like a slap across the face. It was a selfie of Monnique and a man I had never seen before in my life. He was a white guy with slicked back hair and a smile that looked exactly like a shark's grin. He was holding a glass of champagne and Monnique was holding another glass. Her lips were pursed in an exaggerated kissy face for the camera. They were sitting in massive plush seats that were clearly first-class airline seats. Behind them in the background, a flight attendant was smiling. My eyes dropped down to read the caption underneath the photo. It said, "Kiki, so sorry sis, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Chad says this due by investment is a 100% sure thing. I will pay you back double when I get back. I am going to be a millionaire. Everything is happening so fast. Do not try to find me or call because the international fees are crazy. Love you." I read those words over and over again. Do not try to find me. Pay you back double. A sure thing. Do buy. The word finally connected in my brain with what the banker David had told me earlier. An international account. Do buy. A place with no extradition treaty with the United States. This was not some impulsive decision. This was not a hasty loan. This was a cold, calculated plan that had been in the works for months. The tears and the sob story about needing a business loan and swearing on our mother's life. It had all been one elaborate, cruel performance designed specifically to get access to my bank account. My family and my parents had let this happen. They had actively encouraged it. They had essentially given their approval for the robbery of their own daughter. The phone slipped out of my hand and clattered loudly onto the kitchen tiles. My legs completely gave out underneath me. I slid down the front of the kitchen cabinets with my back hitting the wood with a dull thudding sound. I landed hard on the floor, sitting among all the sharp pieces of my broken coffee mug with the spilled liquid cold and sticky against my skin. I was completely ruined. It was not even about the money anymore. It was about the crushing, unbearable weight of the truth. I had no sister, I had no parents, I had no family at all. I was 34 years old, and I was completely, utterly, totally alone in the world. I wrapped my arms tightly around my knees and I started to weep. These were not quiet tears. These were raw, gasping sobs coming from someone whose entire world had just been burned to ashes right in front of her eyes. I had absolutely nothing left. I was bankrupt. My daughter Maya and her school fees and our rent payment. I had nothing to give her. I have no idea how long I sat there on that cold kitchen floor. The sun had shifted position in the sky, and the puddle of spilled coffee had turned into a cold, sticky mess on the tile. My sobs had finally quieted down into ragged, exhausted breaths. I had nothing. No money, no family, no future. Then I heard a soft sound coming from the hallway. It was a quiet click. The door to Maya's bedroom creaked open slowly. I had not even realized she had woken up. My 9-year-old daughter stood there in the doorway. Her small frame was silhouetted against the light. As always, she was holding her tablet pressed against her chest. Maya has always been a quiet child. She is always watching everything and always processing information. She took in the entire scene with an unsettling calmness. She saw me crumpled on the floor with my face swollen and stained with tears and the shattered coffee mug scattered everywhere. She did not panic. She just stood there calmly analyzing the situation. She walked over to where I was sitting. Her footsteps were completely silent on the hardwood floor. She stopped a few feet away from me. Her dark eyes looked straight into mine without blinking. She asked in a soft, almost neutral voice if I was crying. Her voice was so calm, it nearly made me break down all over again. I tried desperately to scrub the tears from my face with the back of my hand because I wanted to shield her from all of this pain. How could I possibly explain to my 9-year-old daughter that her aunt, her own blood relative, had just completely destroyed our lives? I stammered that it was okay and told her that Mommy was just upset. I explained that Aunt Monnique had done a very bad thing. She had taken all of Mommy's savings money. Maya tilted her head to one side. Her gaze was sharp and intensely focused. She asked in that same calm voice if that included the money for the rent. She then asked about the money for her school. A fresh wave of nausea rolled over me. The tuition payment. Oh God, the $5,000 payment was due on Monday morning. I choked on a sob and nodded because I was unable to speak actual words. I managed to say, "Yes, baby, that money is all gone now." I fully expected her to start crying. I expected her to ask if we were going to end up homeless. That is what any normal 9-year-old child would do in this situation. But Maya just stood there staring at me for a long, quiet moment. Her expression was not one of fear. It was something else entirely, something I could not quite identify or understand. It was intense. It was determined. It was an expression that absolutely did not belong on the face of a child. She stepped forward, coming closer than she usually did when I was visibly upset. She reached out one small hand and patted my shoulder. It was a gesture that felt both awkward and incredibly firm at the same time. She told me not to worry. She said, "Mom, I will handle it." Her voice was perfectly even, as if she were calmly discussing a simple math problem she had already solved in her head. I looked at her. My 9-year-old child was offering to handle a financial catastrophe that had just brought my entire world crashing down around me. She said it with the same casual confidence she used when she announced she had finished her math homework. As if she were just cleaning up a pile of spilled toys. My mind was too shattered and broken to even process what her words actually meant. I just nodded. It was a pathetic, jerky movement. What else could I possibly do? What could a 9-year-old girl possibly do about international wire fraud? How could she handle a $150,000 theft? She could not. I was supposed to be the adult. I was the mother and I had completely failed. I had failed to protect us. I had failed to see the danger that was lurking right inside my own family. I was bankrupt. Tomorrow I would have to call my landlord and beg for an extension on the rent. Tomorrow I would have to call Maya's school and tell them she could not come back. The thought was too much to bear. The despair felt like an actual physical weight crushing down on my chest, making it impossible to breathe properly. I could not let myself fall apart like this in front of her. I could not let her see me this broken. I pushed myself up from the floor. My limbs felt heavy and completely useless. I told her that Mommy just needed to lie down for a minute. I did not wait for her to respond. I stumbled out of the kitchen. I crossed through the living room and went into my bedroom. I closed the door behind me, shutting out the entire world. The click of the lock was the only sound in the silent house. I fell onto my bed and buried my face deep in a pillow. My body was shaking with the overwhelming force of my hopelessness. It was over. Everything was over. But out in the living room, the house was not actually still. Maya stood watching the bedroom door close. Her expression did not change at all. She remained perfectly calm. Her focus was absolute. She walked over to the sofa and sat down, carefully crossing her small legs. She opened her tablet. There were no colorful game icons visible on the screen. There were no kid-friendly apps. The screen was completely black. It was filled with lines of bright green text, a command line interface. Her small fingers, which were barely big enough to span the width of the keyboard, began to move. They flew across the screen with a speed and precision that would absolutely baffle most adults. She was not playing any game. She was going to work. 2 entire days passed by in a complete blur of shame and sleepless panic that seemed to stretch on forever. I had not really told Maya what had actually happened. Not in any real detail anyway. How do you possibly explain to a child that your own family has just systematically destroyed you? I spent those hours hiding away in my room, supposedly working on my laptop, but in reality I was just staring blankly at predatory loan websites. Fast cash available, bad credit okay, get $10,000 by tomorrow. The interest rates were absolutely criminal, ranging from 40% to 50% or even higher. But what choice did I actually have left? I was a data analyst by profession. I understood exactly what these numbers meant. These were not legitimate loans. These were carefully designed traps. They were financial quicks, but I was already drowning, so what did it matter? I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open to yet another loan application form. My stomach was churning with complete self-loathing and disgust. That is when my phone suddenly rang. My entire body went completely rigid. Was it Monnique calling? Was it my parents finally realizing what they had actually done? I looked down at the screen. The caller ID displayed Crestwood Academy, which was Maya's private school. My heart immediately started hammering hard against my ribs. I picked up the call and tried my absolute best to sound normal and professional. I said, "This is Kesha Vance speaking." A crisp, polite voice responded saying, "Miss Vance, hello. This is Headmaster Peters calling regarding Maya's tuition account." The voice was polite, but left absolutely no room for negotiation or error. She continued saying, "I am sure you are aware, but the automated payment for this month's tuition installment was declined when we attempted to process it this morning. We tried processing the payment twice. I closed my eyes tightly. I told her that I was so sorry and explained there must be some kind of issue with my bank account, a technical error of some kind. I assured her I was working on sorting it out right now. She said in a tone that implied she did not actually understand or believe me, that she understood we all experience technical glitches from time to time. However, she pointed out that the payment was for $5,000, and according to the enrollment agreement I had signed, tuition must be paid in full by the 5th of each month. We were already 2 days past that deadline. I said yes, I know, and asked if I could possibly send a check payment on Monday. I was pleading, even though I had absolutely no idea how I would actually get that money. Headmaster Peters said in a firmer voice that this was precisely why she was calling. We must have the full payment by Monday morning at 9 o'clock. If the balance is not cleared by that time, I am afraid we will have to place Meyer on temporary suspension from all classes. We maintain a waiting list, Miss Vance, and we must adhere strictly to our enrollment policies." The word suspension felt like an actual physical blow to my chest. I said, "But she has her science fair project presentation on Tuesday. She has been working on that project for weeks." Headmaster Peters replied, "Then I certainly hope you can resolve your banking issue before Monday morning." She wished me a pleasant weekend, and the line went dead. I let the phone drop from my hand. It clattered loudly onto the kitchen table. They were actually going to kick my daughter out of her school. They were going to take away the only real stability she had in her life, all because of what Monnique had done, all because of what my parents had allowed to happen. I buried my face in both my hands. The predatory loan website was still glowing mockingly on my laptop screen. Right on cue, a notification suddenly pinged on my computer. It was an email. The subject line was written in capital letters, and it was stark and brutal. It said, "Final overdue notice, rent payment 5 days past due." I clicked to open the email. It was from my landlord. The message read, "Dear Miss Vance, your rent payment of $2,500 is now 5 days late. If full payment is not received within 48 hours, we will be forced to begin formal eviction proceedings according to the terms of your lease agreement. Eviction, suspension." I had exactly 48 hours until Maya and I would be homeless. I had even less time than that until my daughter would be kicked out of school. Monnique had not just stolen my past, she had stolen our entire future. The eviction notice and the school's email blurred together on my laptop screen. Eviction, suspension, my daughter's future, our home. Everything was gone in an instant. I was beyond tears now. I was in a cold, quiet place of pure, absolute terror. I had one last option available, one final humiliating phone call I could make. Swallowing down the acidic taste of my shattered pride, I dialed my mother's phone number. I was not begging for myself anymore. I was begging for Maya. The phone rang exactly twice before she picked up. Her voice sounded casual, as if her entire world had not just been turned completely upside down. She answered saying, "Janice Vance speaking." I had to physically force the words out of my mouth. I kept my voice low and steady so that Meyer in the next room would not hear the panic that was threatening to overwhelm me. I said, "Mom, it is me." I told her I was not calling about the money Monnique took. I was not asking for it back, but I desperately needed help. I needed to borrow $5,000. I rushed on before she could interrupt me. I explained it was for Maya's school. Headmaster Peters had called. If I did not pay the overdue tuition by Monday morning, they were going to suspend her from classes. I said, "Mom, please, they are going to kick her out of school." There was a long, heavy sigh from her end of the line. It was the exact same sound I had heard my entire life, the sound of my mother being deeply inconvenienced by my very existence. She began speaking, and her voice was laced with that familiar weary disapproval. She said, "Kesha, your father and I have already been dealing with this entire situation. We spoke with Monnique this morning." A tiny, stupid flicker of hope suddenly sparked in my chest. I asked if she had talked to her. I asked if Monnique was okay. I asked if she was sending the money back. My mother said dismissively that she was fine. She explained that Monnique had just experienced a small temporary setback. She said Monnique had explained that the investment needed one more week to fully mature. It was apparently a very sensitive time in the investment process. In fact, my mother continued, "Your father," and I decided to support her during this critical time. We felt she needed to know her family was standing behind her. I asked confused what she meant by support her. What exactly did that mean? My mother said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, that we sent her some more money, of course. She said it was just another $20,000 to help her finalize the transaction. She explained that Monnique was so worried, and the poor thing said Chad just needed a little more capital to close the deal properly. She added that Monnique was so grateful we believed in her. I could not speak. The phone felt slippery in my sweating hand. They had sent more money. They had actually sent the thief who had stolen my entire life savings even more money. My mother asked if I was still there on the line. She said honestly, she did not see why I was making such a fuss about everything. It was just money after all. Monnique was going to become a millionaire very soon, and she would pay everyone back with interest. I whispered Mom in a voice that was trembling. I asked if she had heard what I just said. Maya was going to be kicked out of her school on Monday. I was being evicted from our apartment. I just needed $5,000. Suddenly, my father Lawrence was on the line. His voice was booming with anger. He said, "And what about us, Kesha?" He explained that your mother and I just sent our life savings to your sister to help secure this family's future. And now you are calling to whine about a school bill. I screamed, losing the last shred of my composure, that she stole my money. She stole my money, and you just sent her more. My father roared back that I should stop right now. He said our money is for investing in a guaranteed future, not for bailing out your bad financial decisions. He told me I should have had my own separate savings account. I was supposed to be the responsible one. I always had been, so I should be responsible now and figure it out on my own. He continued saying that my sister was making a major power move for this entire family. I was just dealing with a late bill. He told me to stop being so selfish and short-sighted. This was a lesson I clearly needed to learn. He said, "Do not call us again asking for a handout." The line went completely dead. He had hung up on me again. They had sent her $20,000 after knowing full well that she had stolen $150,000 from me. They had made their choice. They had explicitly chosen Monnique's obvious scam over their own granddaughter's education. They had chosen to let Maya and me fail completely just so they could give their golden child even more money. I was not just alone anymore. I was being actively pushed under by the very people who were supposed to be my life raft. I was still sitting on the sofa, completely motionless. I had not moved an inch. The phone was sitting on the coffee table, completely silent. The eviction notice and the school suspension email were both still open on my laptop, glowing in the dim living room light. They had won. My parents and my sister had pushed me off a cliff, and now they were actively throwing rocks down at me. I felt absolutely nothing. I was just a hollow, empty shell, completely drained. The door to Maya's room opened again. I did not even look up. I just did not have the energy left. I heard small footsteps approaching, and then a glass of water was gently placed on the coffee table directly in front of me. It was Maya. She was still wearing her pajamas with her tablet tucked under her arm. She sat down next to me on the sofa. She was not touching me. She was just sitting there. She said in a calm voice that I should drink some water. It was not a suggestion. It was a calm instruction. I just stared at the glass. I told her it would not help. Nothing would help now. Maya said, as if I had actually asked her a question, that Aunt Monnique and Uncle Chad were still okay. I finally turned my head to look at her. Her face was completely calm. She was focused on her tablet screen. I asked what she was talking about. She said while tapping on her screen that she could see them. She explained they were currently at the Burj Al Arab Hotel in Dubai. They had just spent $1,500 on room service last night and $4,000 at a watch store this morning. I shot up completely straight on the sofa. The fog of despair momentarily lifted and was replaced by sharp, cold confusion. I asked what and how in the world could she possibly know that? Maya looked up from her tablet. Her eyes were clear and steady. She said simply that she had turned on the credit card alerts. I asked whose credit card. She said Aunt Monnique's credit card. She explained that Aunt Monnique was dumb. Her voice was completely flat, like she was describing a badly written line of computer code. Maya continued explaining that when Monnique set up her new bank account in Dubai, she used one of my old credit cards to link as a recovery option. It was the card I had cancelled last year after I lost my wallet. She must have had the card numbers memorized from before. She also linked the new account to an old email address she had forgotten she even had. Maya added, but I did not forget. I still have the password to that email. I tried desperately to process what I was hearing. I said, but I locked all my credit cards. I do not understand how this works. Maya explained patiently like I was the child and she was the adult. She said Monique did not use my actual card. She just used the card number to set up the profile on the bank website. The card she was currently using to spend money was the new one. The one Grandma and Grandpa had just sent her with the $20,000. Maya continued saying she saw the confirmation email for that transaction too. They sent her $20,000 to a brand new credit account. I linked that account to my own alerts as well. I just stared at my 9-year-old daughter. The room was completely silent, except for the faint tapping sound of her small fingers on the tablet screen. My mind, which was trained in data analysis, was struggling desperately to keep up with what she was telling me. Alerts, linked accounts, old email addresses. I asked Meyer in a voice that was barely more than a whisper what she was talking about. What exactly had she done? She looked at me with a completely serious expression. She said, I am handling it, Mom, just like I told you I would. Before I could ask another question, she turned the tablet screen to face me directly. On the screen was not a game. It was what looked exactly like a real bank website logged in and showing a detailed list of transactions. Burj Al Arab room service $1,500, Rolex due, by Mall $4,200, Louis Vuitton $2,800. It was a complete shopping spree. All of it was happening in real time. All of it was being funded by my parents' money. I said slowly that she was watching her. Maya said, of course, I am watching her. You cannot stop a thief if you do not know exactly where they are. I realized in that exact moment that my daughter was not just a quiet, smart kid. She was something else entirely, something I had never fully understood, and for the first time in 3 entire days I felt something other than complete despair. It was a tiny, sharp flicker of hope. I stared at the transaction list displayed on Maya's tablet screen. My mind was buzzing loudly. This was not just a simple banking app. This was raw data. This was a direct live feed. My data analyst brain, which had been completely numb with despair, suddenly clicked back on like a switch. I asked Meyer, in a voice that was barely more than a whisper, what exactly she had done. What was she actually showing me? Maya did not look up from her screen. She just kept scrolling through the data. She said calmly that she was watching the transaction logs from the bank in Dubai. She added that Aunt Monnique had been very busy this morning. She explained that Monnique had taken all the money. The $150,000 from my account and the $20,000 from Grandma and Grandpa's account. She pulled it all together. My blood ran completely cold. I said so she put it all together in one place. Maya said yes while tapping the screen. She explained that Monnique moved everything into a single investment account. It was a high-risk, high-yield fund, but the account was not actually in her name. It was only in Uncle Chad's name. The final piece of the puzzle suddenly slotted into place in my mind, of course. The charming white boyfriend, the sure-thing investment opportunity. My sister had not just stolen from me. She had been foolish enough to immediately give every penny of it to an obvious con artist. He was going to take absolutely everything and leave her completely stranded. A tiny, vicious part of me almost felt like she deserved exactly what was coming. But then I remembered Maya's tuition payment. I remembered my rent. I said, so it is all gone then. He has everything. We cannot get any of it back. Maya said, oh no, and finally looked up at me. She said, I have it. Well, I have access to it anyway. I just stared at her, unable to form words. I managed to say what? Maya explained that she had the login credentials and the password and the security token codes. I am a data analyst by training and profession. I understand computer systems. I understand security protocols and firewalls and encryption. What I absolutely did not understand was how my 9-year-old daughter was calmly sitting here telling me she had somehow compromised an international bank's security system. My mind started racing, trying to connect the technical terms I had seen her researching for her coding club projects at school. I said slowly and carefully that what she was telling me sounded like she had performed some kind of cyber attack. I asked if she was talking about cookie mining, or maybe a packet sniffer, or possibly a man-in-the-middle exploit. The words sounded completely absurd coming out of my mouth. I was describing sophisticated, highly illegal cyber attacks. I was asking my 9-year-old daughter if she had committed multiple serious felonies. Maya just shrugged. It was a small, almost dismissive gesture. She said their security was really bad, Mom. It was really, really bad. She explained that Aunt Monnique was very sloppy. She used the same passwords for absolutely everything, and when she set up her new account, she did it while connected to the hotel's public Wi-Fi network. Maya said it was easy. She continued explaining it as casually as if it were a simple school project. She said she let all the transactions complete. She needed to see where all the money was actually going. She had to let them think they were completely safe. But when Aunt Monnique first logged into that new investment account, Maya said she helped her just a little bit. I asked what she meant by helped her. Maya said she was already watching Monnique's network traffic. She explained that when Monnique went to the bank's registration page, Maya injected a small spider script into the form submission. It was easy, she repeated. The website did not have good cross-site scripting protection. The script just copied all of Monnique's registration data as she typed it in, username, password, security questions, everything. It bundled it all up and sent it directly to Maya right before Monnique hit the submit button. Maya said Monnique did all the work. I just made a copy. She turned the tablet back to herself. She said, "So yes, Mom, I have the keys to everything. Uncle Chad has the money right now, but he does not know that I am in the room with him, watching every single move he makes." 3 entire days had passed, 3 days of living in a cold, suffocating fog of despair. Monday morning finally arrived exactly as I knew it would. It was 8:45 in the morning. The final deadline for Maya's tuition payment was in exactly 15 minutes. I was sitting on the sofa staring at my phone. My thumb was hovering over the contact entry for Crestwood Academy headmaster Peters. I had rehearsed the humiliating speech in my head at least 100 times. "Hello, Headmaster Peters. I am afraid we have experienced a serious financial emergency. My sister, who is my daughter's aunt, stole my daughter's tuition money. We need to withdraw Maya from school immediately." The shame of having to say those words out loud felt like an actual physical sickness. I was a complete failure as a mother. I had let this nightmare happen. I had let them win. My daughter was in the living room quietly eating a bowl of cereal. Her tablet was propped up against the milk carton on the table. She seemed perfectly, almost unnervingly calm, as if this were just any other normal Monday morning. Her calmness almost made me feel angry. How could she possibly not understand that our entire lives were completely over? I took a deep, shuddering breath and got ready to make the call. I was ready to finalize our total defeat. Then my phone suddenly lit up. It was not a number I recognized. It was a WhatsApp call. The caller ID was showing a long string of numbers starting with the country code +971. That was the United Arab Emirates. That was Dubai. My blood instantly turned to ice. It was Monnique. I looked over at Maya. She slowly raised her eyes from her tablet and met my gaze directly. She did not smile. She just gave me one single deliberate nod. Her expression said, "Handle it." I took a breath. The suffocating fear suddenly vanished. It was replaced by something cold and hard and sharp. I was not the victim anymore. I was the witness. I pressed the green accept button, and I immediately hit the speakerphone option. The connection crackled for just a second before her voice absolutely exploded through the speaker. It was so loud and so distorted by pure animal panic that it barely even sounded human. She screamed, "Kesha, what did you do? What in God's name did you do to me?" It was the exact shriek I had heard in pieces before. It was a raw, terrified scream. It was a world away from the breezy champagne-fueled "love you sis" caption from her Instagram post. I held the phone in my hand. My hand was perfectly steady. I glanced over at Maya. She was still calmly eating her cereal one spoonful at a time. I said in a measured, cool voice, Monnique, I am not sure I understand what you are talking about. She screamed back, telling me not to dare play dumb with her. She said the money, my money, it is all gone. I replied, carefully testing the word. I said your money, you mean my money, the $150,000 you stole from my savings account. The money you took from me and my daughter. She shrieked back no. Her voice was cracking into a sob. She said the investment money, the $170,000. It was all there. I saw it with my own eyes. Chad and I both saw it. We went to the investment office this morning to pull out the first dividend payment. We were planning to buy a condo on the Palm. We walked in all dressed up and they handed us the payment tablet and the card was declined. Her voice was rising and pitching higher and higher into complete hysteria. She repeated declined Kesha. It happened right in front of everyone, in front of all the other investors. Chad looked like a complete fool. I looked like a fool, so I logged into the account right there. I logged in right there in the lobby, and it was completely empty, zero balance, not a single dollar left, $170,000 just gone. She screamed, you did this. You hacked me somehow. You stole it back. How could you do this to me? I let the silence hang in the air between us. I let her accusations echo in my quiet apartment. I could hear her starting to hyperventilate. The sound was punctuated by high-pitched angry sobs. She wailed again, asking how I could do this to her. She said that was her future, her one big chance. I had ruined everything. She said I was always jealous of her, always trying to ruin her happiness. She said she hated me. I looked across the room at my daughter. Maya calmly took another spoonful of cereal. Her eyes were glued to her tablet, which was now displaying a world map with a single blinking red dot. That dot was pinpointing an exact location in Dubai. My baby girl was an absolute force of nature. I felt a slow, cold smile spread across my face. It was the first time I had smiled in days. I said, Monnique, cutting through her hysterics like a sharp knife. I told her I had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. I explained I was a data analyst working in Atlanta. How could I possibly touch an international investment account located in Dubai? I have been right here the entire time dealing with the fact that my daughter is about to be kicked out of her school, and we are about to be evicted from our apartment, all thanks to you. I continued in a voice that was smooth and reasonable. I said I did not take your money, Monnique. I could not possibly have taken it. I paused deliberately, letting the implications slowly land, letting her frantic mind finally catch up. I said it sounds to me like your sure-thing investment was not so sure after all. It sounds to me like Chad took your money. I looked over at my daughter. Maya had written something on her tablet screen in simple, clear letters. The message said, Mom, just act confused. Tell her you could not possibly access her account. Ask her if she is sure Chad did not take it. My 9-year-old daughter had just handed me a complete script to follow. I took a deep, steadying breath. The panic was completely gone now. It was replaced by a cold, sharp focus. I was not a victim anymore. I was an actress in my daughter's carefully planned play. I forced a tremor of confusion into my voice. I said, Monnique, I do not know what to say. How could I possibly access your new bank account? I am in Atlanta. You are in Dubai. I do not have your passwords. I do not have your information. I have been right here staring at my own empty bank accounts, trying to figure out how I am going to pay for Maya's school tuition. Monnique shrieked that I was lying. She said she did not know how I did it, but I must have done it somehow. She said I probably called the bank and pretended to be her. She added that I was always good at doing things like that. I said, Monnique, that is completely insane. They would never let me do that. International bank security protocols are extremely strict. It was then that Maya chose to intervene in the conversation. She leaned in toward the phone. Her voice was small and clear and full of childish innocence. She said, "Hi, Aunt Monnique." The screaming on the other end of the line stopped instantly. The sudden silence was absolutely jarring. Monique's voice came back sharp with confusion. She said, "Maya, baby, is that you? Put your mother back on the phone right now. She is in very big trouble." Maya said in a sweet, helpful tone that she did not think Mom took the money. She said, "I think Uncle Chad took it, Aunt Monnique." I watched the phone and waited. The silence stretched out for 3 seconds, then 4 seconds, then 5 seconds. Monique's voice came back different now. It was no longer hysterical. It was a low, dangerous whisper. She said, "Maya, what did you just say?" Maya said as if she were reading from a simple school report that she saw the transactions. She explained that she had been watching the account like Mom had asked her to. She glanced at me. It was a brilliant little lie that made me seem like the mastermind. She said she saw the money go in, all $170,000, but then 4 hours ago it all moved out. Monnique whispered the word "moved." She asked where it moved to. Maya said it moved to another account, a new one. It was opened this morning with a bank registered in the Cayman Islands. The account is only in one name. Chad Reynolds. He moved everything. Well, not everything technically. Monnique asked what she meant by not everything. Maya said he left $1. She explained that she thought he left exactly $1 in the investment account so that Monnique would not get an automatic alert that the account was closed. She would only get a notification that her card was declined. Meyer added it was actually pretty smart if you think about it. Monnique breathed the word no. She said no, he would not do that. He is right here with me. We were just going shopping together. He is in the shower right now. He is right here in the room. I could hear the rising panic in her voice as she desperately tried to convince herself. I heard her footsteps moving quickly and frantically. The street sounds in the background faded away. She must have run back to their hotel room. She called out Chad. Her voice was distant now. She said, "Chad, are you in there?" Then she said, "Why is the key card not working?" Maya said, "Oh," while looking at her tablet, which now showed what looked like a hotel folio receipt. She said, "That is why. He just checked out Aunt Monnique 10 minutes ago. He paid the entire hotel bill with your new credit card, the one Grandma and Grandpa sent you." Maya continued in a helpful tone, saying Monnique should probably check her email. She explained that the bank in Dubai sent her a confirmation email for the wire transfer. The bank in the Cayman Islands sent a welcome email. The hotel sent a receipt for the checkout. Maya said, "I made sure they were all forwarded to your inbox. I even marked them as important so you would not miss them." The sound that came through the phone next was not a word. It was a guttural scream of pure, unadulterated rage. It was the sound of a predator suddenly realizing it had just been caught in a trap. We heard a muffled crash. Monnique must have dropped her phone, but the line was still connected. The sounds were distant, but they were terribly clear. She was screaming Chad. The sound barely seemed human. She screamed, "Chad, you son of a lying snake. You stole my money. You stole all my money." We heard a man's voice in the background. He sounded startled. He said, "Monnique, what the hell is wrong with you?" She screamed back, calling him a liar. She said, "You were leaving me. You took everything." There was a loud crash. It was the sound of glass shattering, maybe a lamp. The man yelled, "Get off me, you psycho." He said, "The money is gone. It is just business. You should have known better." Monnique shrieked that she would kill him. She demanded he give her back her money. There was more screaming, more crashing. The sickening sound of a violent, desperate physical struggle. Then the line went completely dead. I sat in my kitchen with my heart pounding hard in my chest. My sister was somewhere in due, by screaming and physically fighting with the con artist who had just stolen every single penny from her. The con artist that she herself had stolen from me. I looked over at Maya. She had already closed all the banking applications on her tablet. She picked up her spoon and calmly took another bite of her cereal as if nothing unusual had just happened. I slept in the living room that night, although slept is definitely not the right word to describe what I did. I sat on the sofa in complete darkness with my daughter's tablet resting on the coffee table in front of me. The screen was glowing faintly. I watched the blinking red dot that represented Monnique's location as it moved around different areas of Dubai until the sun finally came up. Maya slept peacefully on the air mattress we had set up across the room. I envied her complete calm. The next morning arrived and I was like a ghost. I was mechanically making coffee that I had absolutely no intention of actually drinking. It was Monday. This was the day Maya would be kicked out of school. This was the day my eviction process would officially begin. I was just standing there staring blankly at the kitchen wall when my phone suddenly rang. The sound absolutely shattered the silence. I jumped and spilled hot coffee all over the counter. It was my parents calling. My heart immediately began to pound. I looked over at Maya. She was awake now, and she was watching me closely. I put the call on speaker. It was my mother Janice, and she was absolutely hysterical. She was not just crying, she was wailing like someone had died. She screamed, "Kesha, oh my God, Kesha, you have to help us. It is Monnique." I held the phone in my hand. My hand was perfectly still and steady. I asked, "Mom, what is wrong? What happened now?" She shrieked that he left her, that man Chad had left her. She explained that Monnique had just called them. She said Monnique was trapped. She said, "Kesha, he took everything. He took all the money, and oh God." She paused and said, "Lawrence, I cannot say it. I cannot." I asked Mom to calm down and tell me what else he took. My mother screamed into the phone that he took her passport. She said he took Monnique's passport and all her belongings. She explained they had locked her out of the hotel room. She said Monnique was on the street. My mother was sobbing, saying, "My baby is on the street in a foreign country." She said, "Kesha, you have to help her." I listened carefully. I heard every single word, and I felt absolutely nothing. Just a cold, empty stillness. I said, "Mom, that is terrible. She needs to go to the American embassy. They have procedures for exactly this kind of situation." My mother said we do not have time for bureaucratic procedures. She said Monnique needs money right now. She continued saying, "Kesha, you have to send her money." "You got your money back, did you not?" Monnique told us. "She said you did something to the account. Send it back to her. She desperately needs it." Before I could even answer, the phone was suddenly ripped away. I heard my father's voice. He was not panicked. He was thundering with pure rage. He roared, "Kesha, what did you do? This is your fault." I actually laughed out loud. It was a short, sharp, ugly sound that surprised even me. I said, "My fault? How in the world is this my fault, Dad? Monnique stole my money. She gave it to a con artist. He conned her. That sounds like justice to me." My father yelled that I had set her up. He said, "I do not know how you did it. I do not know what you and that little girl of yours did to those accounts, but you knew this would happen. You let that man rob your sister. You let her be stranded there. I said I did not let anything happen, Dad. She is a 30-year-old woman who partnered with a thief. These are the consequences of her own actions." He shouted that she was my blood. She was my little sister. He said, "And you just sat there safe in Atlanta and let her be destroyed. You could have warned her, you could have stopped it, but you wanted this, did you not? You wanted her to fail. You have always been jealous of her ever since you were kids." The accusation was so old and so tired and so completely backwards that it literally sucked the air from my lung. He was standing in his comfortable paid-off house. He had just sent his criminal daughter $20,000, and he was accusing me, the one who had been robbed, of being jealous. The gaslighting was so profound and so absolute it was almost impressive. He genuinely believed every word. He truly believed that Monnique the thief was the victim, and I, the one facing eviction, was the villain. He continued saying, "You wanted your money back so badly that you let your sister be arrested in a foreign country. She is in danger. She is all alone, and it is all because of you, because of your spite, because of your jealousy." I said in a voice that was now as cold as the floor under my feet, "Dad, I did not do anything to her. She and Chad did this to themselves. He commanded me to fix it. He said, 'I do not care what you did. You get that money back from that Chad person, and you send it to your sister immediately. You get her home right now, Kesha. Or so help me God, you will regret it. I held the phone to my ear listening to my father's completely baseless rage. He was blaming me for my sister's choice to partner with a con artist. He was blaming me for not being a better victim. The sheer blinding absurdity of it all gave me a sudden terrible clarity. I said, Dad, I am going to say this once and only once. I did not do anything. Chad deceived her just as she deceived me. It seems they were a perfect match for each other. My father roared, telling me not to dare talk about my sister that way. He said she is a victim. I shot back saying we are all victims of Monnique, Dad, including you. She stole $20,000 from you just as easily as she stole $150,000 from me. The only difference is that you gave yours to her willingly. He started to say that is not, but my mother cut him off. Her voice was now a desperate pleading wail. She said, Kesha, please just stop all this. Janice was crying again, but these were not the manipulative crocodile tears of someone trying to get their way. This was the real terrified sound of a mother who had completely lost control. She begged me, saying, Please, Kiki, she is your sister. She is your baby sister. She is stranded in a foreign country. You have to help her. You have to. I asked in a flat voice, how exactly, Mom? By sending her more money, by bailing her out again so she can find another Chad and do this all over again in 6 months. My mother shrieked, asking if I had gotten the money back. The accusation was completely bare now. She said, Monnique told us you did something. She said you hacked the account somehow. You have the money, Kesha. I know you do. She is your sister. You cannot just keep it. That is blood money. She was calling my stolen life savings blood money. She was calling my inheritance from my grandmother blood money, as if I were the criminal for simply possessing my own property. The audacity of it was absolutely breathtaking. They did not care that I had been robbed. They only cared that Monnique's robbery had failed. They were not angry about the theft itself. They were angry that the thief had been out-thieved by someone smarter. And they were completely convinced that I was the one who had done it, that I was the one who had somehow outsmarted their precious golden child. I looked across the room. Maya was sitting at the kitchen table. Her math homework was spread out neatly in front of her. Her tablet was propped up next to it. She was calmly working on long division problems. Her pencil was moving steadily across the paper. She was completely unfazed by all the screaming coming from my phone speaker. She was the only point of calm in my entire collapsing world. I said, Mom, in a voice that was weary and exhausted. I was done. I was so tired of this endless toxic loop. I was tired of their accusations. I was tired of their manipulations. I was tired of their blind, destructive favoritism. I said, let me see what I can do. My mother immediately sobbed with relief, saying, Oh, Kesha, thank you. Thank you, baby. I knew you would not let us down. I knew you would do the right thing. She told me to send the money right away. She said, here is the hotel number where Monnique is waiting. I pressed the red end call button, cutting off her relieved instructions mid-sentence. I did not want to hear them anymore. I did not want to hear their gratitude, which was just as false as their anger had been. I had not actually agreed to anything. I had just said, let me see what I can do. And I fully intended to do exactly that. I stared at the phone in my hand. They thought I was jealous. They thought I was spiteful. They thought I was the villain. They thought I was the cold-hearted sister who had somehow magically stolen money from an international account just to ruin Monnique's life. They had absolutely no idea. They had no idea who the real power in this house actually was. Maya looked up from her homework. Her expression was as placid as ever. She must have heard the entire conversation. She asked in a quiet voice, did you want me to help Aunt Monnique, Mom? She said, I still have access to her new credit card. I could send her a cash advance, or I could buy her a plane ticket home. I looked at my brilliant, terrifying, wonderful 9-year-old daughter. She was offering to help the woman who had tried to make her homeless. She was offering to fix the entire mess. A slow, cold smile spread across my face. It was the first genuine smile I had felt in days. The fog of despair was completely gone now. It was replaced by a diamond-hard resolve. This was not about jealousy anymore. It was not even about revenge. It was about ending this cycle once and for all. It was about protecting my daughter from a family that would sacrifice her future for a fantasy. It was about taking back control of our lives. I said, "No, baby. You do not need to help Aunt Monnique." I walked over and kissed the top of her head gently. I picked up my phone and dialed the number for my father's office. It was the direct line for his private assistant. It was time. Maya looked up at me. Her expression was confused. She asked then, "What are we doing, Mom?" I smiled down at her. My voice was like ice. I said, "You do not need to do anything else, my love. You already did your part perfectly." I put the phone to my ear as it started to ring. I continued saying, "As for me, I am going to help Mommy end this." I did not go to my parents' house. I absolutely refused to set foot in that place. That was the house where my value had always been debated and ultimately dismissed. I told them to come to my apartment at exactly 6 o'clock in the evening if they wanted to discuss Monnique's situation. They arrived at 5:45, clearly agitated. My father Lawrence did not even wait for my mother Janice to get fully through the door. He immediately asked Kesha, "Have you contacted her yet?" He said, "We need to get her money immediately." He was pacing around my small living room. His hands were stuffed deep in his pockets. His expensive suit looked rumpled and completely out of place. He said she called again and she was crying. He explained the hotel manager was threatening to call the police. He said she could be arrested, Kesha, for not paying a hotel bill. My mother sat down on the very edge of my sofa. Her hands were twisting the strap of her purse nervously. She said they took her passport, Kiki. That man Chad took her passport. She cannot even go to the embassy now. We have to wire her money. We have to do it right away. I let them spin out their panic for another full minute. I just stood there watching them. They were absolutely terrified, not for me who had faced eviction and my child's suspension from school, but for Monnique, who was facing the immediate consequences of her own criminal actions. I waited until my father paused to take a breath, then I spoke. My voice cut through their hysteria like sharp glass. I said, "I have been in contact with both of them." The entire room went completely still. Both of my parents froze and stared at me. My father said, "What?" in a voice that dropped low. He asked, "What do you mean, both of them?" I said, "I mean I have been in contact with Aunt Monnique, and I have also been in contact with Uncle Chad." I walked over to my desk and picked up a thin file folder. My mother whispered, "You spoke to him." Her eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and awe. She asked how. "We do not even know his last name. Monnique just said Chad." I said, "His name is Chad Reynolds." I opened the folder. I continued saying, and he was surprisingly cooperative, especially after I sent him a few items to review this morning. My father's face was a mask of complete confusion. He asked, cooperative, "What are you talking about? He is a thief. He stole your sister's money." I corrected him, saying, "He stole my money, Dad, and your money. Let us be very clear about that." I said, "And yes, he is a thief. But thieves, it turns out, are very predictable, especially when they think they are about to be caught." I explained that I had sent him a simple email. My father asked, "You have his email address?" I said, "I have everything." And for the first time, I let the cold confidence I felt show clearly on my face. I continued explaining that I sent him a very helpful email at 6 o'clock in the morning due. By time, I attached a detailed copy of his transaction history from his new account in the Cayman Islands. I also attached the records from his other secret account in Zurich and the one he has in Singapore, just for good measure. I wanted him to know that I could see all of it. I saw Monnique's $170,000 land in his account, and I saw him immediately slice it up and move it into 3 other shell accounts. My parents were completely speechless. They looked at me as if I had just started speaking in a different language they could not understand. I continued saying, but the most helpful part, I think, was the link I included. It was a direct link to the official website of the Dubai Police Force, specifically their cybercrime and financial fraud division. I suggested very politely that he might want to familiarize himself with their extradition policies because I was preparing a full detailed report for them. I also copied the fraud department at the Burj Al Arab Hotel. I looked up at my father, who was now gripping the back of the sofa. His knuckles had turned completely white. I said. He replied almost instantly. He is very, very cooperative now. I paused for dramatic effect. I said, I have good news and I have bad news. My father Lawrence, who had been pacing, stopped instantly. He asked, What is it, Kesha? Did you get the money? Did you contact Monnique? I let the silence hang in the air for a beat. I said, the good news is yes. The entire $170,000 is secure. My father actually clapped his hands together. His entire body flooded with visible relief. The anger was completely gone. It was replaced by his usual breezy arrogance. He said, Kiki, I knew you could do it. I knew you would not let your sister down. You are the responsible one, after all. He continued saying, now get it wired to her immediately. He turned to my mother, saying, Janice, call Monnique right now and tell her Kesha fixed everything. My mother Janice pressed a hand to her chest. She was nearly sobbing with relief. She said, oh, Kiki, that is wonderful. My poor baby girl, all alone in Dubai. You saved her. They were already celebrating. They were already rewriting the narrative in their heads. In their version, I, the responsible one, had once again solved the problem they created. They were giddy, not with relief for me or my daughter, but with the knowledge that their golden child was safe. I held up a single hand. I said, stop, just stop talking. They both froze. Their smiles began fading. I said, I am not finished yet. That was the good news. Now for the bad news. My father frowned. His impatience was already returning. He said, what bad news? You got the money. The crisis is over. Send it to your sister now. I said, the bad news for you is that I did not get the money back. A thick, confused silence filled the entire room. My father's smile was completely gone now. He said, I do not understand. You just said. I corrected him, saying, I said the money was secure. I did not say I was the one who secured it. Maya did. My father stared at me blankly, but it was my mother who reacted first. She let out a short, sharp laugh. A sound like a bark. She said, Maya, your 9-year-old daughter. Kesha, this is absolutely not the time for your sick, twisted jokes. Your sister is stranded and in danger, and you are playing games. My father chimed in. His face was darkening with anger again. He said, that is right, Kesha. What is wrong with you? Are you trying to hold the money hostage? Is that what this is? Are you trying to blackmail us? Give me the login information right now. I will transfer the money to Monnique myself. I said, it is not a joke, Dad. All three of us turned. Maya was standing in the doorway. She was holding her tablet. Her gaze was fixed on my parents. She walked into the room. Her small bare feet were silent on the hardwood floor. My mother scoffed. She said, Maya, honey, this is an adult conversation. Go back to your room and play with your games. Your mother is having an episode. Maya said, in a clear, clinical voice that cut through my mother's condescension. She said, I was not playing games. I was running a script. It was not very difficult. Aunt Monique's new bank in Dubai has a known API vulnerability. I exploited it. My parents just stared at her. They did not understand a single word she was saying. They just saw a 9-year-old girl talking complete nonsense, but I understood perfectly. My God, she was actually explaining it to them. I am a data analyst by profession. I understand computer systems and protocols and numbers, but what my 9-year-old daughter was describing, API exploits, Python escrow accounts, she was detailing a sophisticated surgical cyber attack, the kind that companies pay absolute fortunes to prevent. Maya continued. Her tone was as placid as if she were describing a simple school project. She said I needed to see where the money was going. So when Aunt Monnique initiated the wire transfer from Mom's account to the investment fund, I intercepted the request. I used the API flaw to create an intermediary escrow account under my own control. The money never actually went to Chad. It went to my account. I just spoofed the confirmation receipt so it looked like it landed in his account instead. My father's mouth opened and closed. He looked at me, then at Maya, then back at me. His mind was clearly unable to compute what he was hearing. He finally stammered, You stole the money." Maya looked at him with a flash of clear annoyance, like he was a slow student who was not keeping up. She said, "I secured the money, Grandpa. Aunt Monnique stole it. I just held it, but I had to make sure Uncle Chad was really the bad guy first. I asked even though I already knew the answer, so what happened this morning, baby?" Maya turned her tablet around to face us. On the screen was a complex diagram showing multiple bank accounts with lines connecting them. She explained that when Uncle Chad tried to steal the money from Aunt Monnique this morning, he was not actually logging into their shared account. He was logging into my escrow account. I made sure to leak the login credentials to him through Aunt Monique's unsecured email account. My mother whispered, "Oh my God." Maya delivered the final devastating line. She said he thought he was transferring the $170,000 to his real bank account in the Cayman Islands, but the script I wrote had a different command built in. It rerouted his transfer request. It sent the entire $170,000 right back into Mom's original savings account here in Atlanta. It has been sitting there since 4 o'clock this morning. She tapped her screen. She added, "Well, almost all of it. I left $1 in the Dubai account, just enough to keep it open, but also just enough to trigger a high-risk fraud alert at the Cayman Bank and flag his new account for investigation. He cannot run anywhere." I looked at my parents. Their faces were completely white, utterly white. They were staring at their 9-year-old granddaughter, the quiet, overlooked child, and for the first time in their lives they were seeing the truth. They were seeing a genius, and they were absolutely terrified. Lawrence and Janice just stared. They were staring at their 9-year-old granddaughter as if she were a ghost or a bomb or both at the same time. My father Lawrence, who always had an answer for everything, and whose voice always filled every room he entered, was completely, utterly silent. His mouth was hanging open, but no words were coming out. My mother Janice just sank back onto the sofa. Her hand was pressed to her chest. Her face was ashen. They were finally seeing it. They were finally seeing the truth. Not just that Maya was a genius, but that they had been outmaneuvered and outsmarted and completely controlled by a 9-year-old girl. I let the silence sit there for a long moment. I let the weight of Maya's confession settle over them like a heavy blanket. I let them process the fact that their golden child had been played like a fiddle by the responsible one's daughter. I said, "Oh," breaking the silence. My voice was light and casual. I said, "And there is just one more thing." I picked up my phone. My parents both flinched as if the small device were an actual weapon, which I supposed it now was. I said I had a very interesting conversation this morning. I tapped the screen. I continued saying I managed to get in touch with both Monnique and Chad. I told you Chad was very cooperative after my email. My father whispered, "What did you do?" His voice was raspy. I said I just made an arrangement. I told Chad that if he returned a portion of the money, I would focus the criminal complaint on Monnique instead. And I told Monnique that if she cooperated, I would focus on Chad. It is amazing how quickly people turn on each other when they are cornered. My mother asked in a trembling voice, "You spoke to Monnique? Is she okay? Where is she right now?" I said she is in a bit of a jam. Chad, it turns out, was not just a con artist. He was also using a fake passport, one that Maya flagged for the authorities in Dubai. It seems my helpful email to the police, the one I told him I was going to send, that email was actually sent 2 days ago. My father's eyes went wide. He said you got him arrested. I said I did not. Maya did. She just forwarded the information, but I did schedule a video call with Monnique. I told her we would discuss wiring her the money to come home. She should be waiting right now. Before they could react, I tapped the video call icon on my phone. I swiped to cast it to the large smart television mounted on the wall. The screen flickered for a second. Then Monnique's face filled the entire 65-inch screen. She was not in a first-class lounge. She was not in a luxury hotel suite. She was in a small cramped room with peeling beige walls and a single flickering fluorescent light overhead. Her hair was a matted greasy mess. Her designer clothes were wrinkled and stained. Her face was streaked with smeared mascara. She looked like she had been crying for days. She looked absolutely incandescently furious. Then she saw me on her screen. She screamed, "Kesha!" Her voice exploded through the surround sound speakers, making my parents literally jump out of their skin. She screamed, "You! What did you do? What did you do to me, you snake?" I just looked at her calmly. I said, "Monnique, you look terrible." She shrieked, "Terrible. I will show you terrible." She continued saying, "I just got a notification from the bank. My account is frozen. My credit cards are all declined. They said there is a fraud alert on my name, and Chad was arrested. He was arrested at the airport 2 hours ago. They said his passport was fake. They said they got an anonymous tip from someone in the United States. That was you, was it not? You did this. You and that weird little girl of yours. You did all of this." She was screaming. Her face was pressed so close to her phone camera that she was just a pair of wild, terrified eyes and a gaping mouth. This was the scream I had heard before, the sound of a trapped animal. I said in a dangerously calm voice, "Monnique, I have no idea what you are talking about. It sounds like you and Chad had a very complicated morning." She shrieked, "Do not," but her voice was suddenly cut off. A loud pounding noise came from her end of the call. We saw her head whip around in absolute terror. A man's voice shouted in the background. It was muffled but clear. He said, By police, open the door. We have a report of a financial fugitive and an expired visa." Monique's face completely dissolved. The rage vanished instantly. It was replaced by primal childlike terror. She looked back at the screen. She looked at me. Her eyes were begging. She whimpered, "Kesha." She said, "Kesha, please. They are here. They are at the door. Please tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you gave me the money. Please, Kiki, help me." I looked at her. Then I looked at my parents who were watching their golden child, their baby, their go-getter. She was about to be arrested on the other side of the world, and I smiled. I looked at my sister's terrified face on the television screen. The pounding on her hotel room door was getting louder and more insistent. She whimpered, "Please, Kiki, help me." I looked at my parents. They were frozen. They were staring at the screen in absolute horror. Then I looked back at the image of my sister. My voice was cold and clear and loud enough for everyone in the room to hear. I said no. Monnique froze on the screen. I continued saying, "You are not going to blame this on me. You are not going to blame this on Chad. This is the consequence of your actions." I then looked directly at my mother. I said, "And Maya did this. Maya protected her family. That is something neither of you has ever done for me." My father Lawrence finally snapped out of his shock. He was not looking at the television anymore. He was looking at me. His mind was visibly churning. He was trying to process the financial implications, not the moral ones. He stammered, "Kesha." His booming voice was reduced to a dry rasp. He said, "The money. The child, how did she? Kesha, what are you going to do with that money?" His question told me absolutely everything I needed to know. He was not horrified by the crime. He was horrified that the money was no longer in his control. I stood up from the sofa. I walked over to Maya, who was still sitting calmly at the kitchen table. I took her small, steady hand in mine. I turned back to face my parents. I was no longer the daughter begging for help. I was the one holding all the cards. I announced in a voice that rang with an authority they had never heard from me. I said the $170,000 is currently safe in a new encrypted high-security trust account. An account that only I can access, an account that you will never touch. I saw my mother's eyes flicker. It was a quick, greedy calculation. She was already scheming about how to get that money back from me. I continued saying, "As for Monnique, I am not completely heartless. I have already taken care of her." My mother Janice looked up. A wild hope was flashing in her eyes. She asked, "You sent her money. You are helping her come home." I said I bought her a plane ticket, one way, economy class from Dubai to Atlanta. Her travel visa expires tomorrow, at which point the Dubai police, the ones you just heard at her door, they will escort her to the airport and deport her. She will arrive back here with nothing but the clothes she is wearing. She will be penniless. She will have no identification because Chad successfully made off with her passport, and she will have a long line of creditors waiting for her. The ones she scammed before she scammed me. I paused, then I looked directly at my father, then at my mother. I said, and this time you will not help her. You will not bail her out. You will not give her a single dollar. You will not let her move into your house. She is a 30-year-old adult who committed a felony. She will face the consequences of her actions alone. My mother Janice finally found her voice. She shot up from the sofa. Her face was purple with an outrage I knew so well. She said, "You cannot command us. You cannot order us around. I am your mother. We will help our daughter. We will help Monnique." I said in a quiet but absolute voice, "No, you will not." She spat back, "And who is going to stop me, you?" I said no. I let my voice drop to a calm, chilling whisper. I said, "You are going to stop yourself, because if you do help her, if I see $1 transferred to her account, if I hear you have paid one of her creditors, if I see her driving a new car or living in your spare bedroom," I leaned forward, my gaze locked onto theirs. I said, "I will make one phone call. And I will ensure that every financial journalist and every society blogger and every major news outlet in Atlanta knows the full story. I will tell them how Lawrence and Janice Vance, the pillars of Atlanta's Black excellence community, raised a daughter who committed international wire fraud. I will tell them how your golden child was deported from Dubai, and I will tell them with bank records to prove it that the entire mess had to be cleaned up by your 9-year-old granddaughter." I let the words hang in the air. I continued saying your reputation, your status, your place at the country club, your entire image that you have spent your lives building. It will all be finished. I smiled. It was a cold, sharp expression I did not recognize as my own. I said, "So go ahead, Mom. Help her. I dare you." A week later, Maya and I were curled up together on our new comfortable sofa. I had just paid the rent in full. I had paid Maya's tuition in full, all of it from the recovered $170,000. I was sipping coffee. Maya was reading an article on her tablet. She said without looking up, "Mom, she is back." I leaned over to look. Maya was not on a school website. She was on a local Atlanta gossip blog. The headline read, "Local woman detained at airport after Dubai vacation goes wrong," and there she was. A grainy cell phone video showed my sister Monnique at Hartsfield-Jackson Airport. She was not the glamorous woman from the first-class selfie anymore. Her designer clothes were wrinkled and badly stained. Her hair was a tangled mess. She was screaming at an airline employee. Her face was twisted in a mask of rage. She tried to push past the employee. 2 airport security guards immediately grabbed her arms. Monnique had returned exactly as I said she would. No Chad, no money, no designer luggage. Just one small carry-on bag and a deportation order stamped in her temporary travel documents. I watched the video without saying a word. I saw her try to make a phone call. Then she threw her phone on the ground after a credit card was presumably declined. I saw her sit down on the floor. She wailed. It was a full-blown tantrum. She acted like a child until security guards escorted her away. My parents kept their word. They were not there at the airport. There were no lawyers waiting. There was no town car to whisk her away from the embarrassment. They had kept their promise, not out of a sudden surge of love for me, not out of a newfound respect for justice. They did it out of pure, unadulterated fear, fear of public humiliation, fear of that one phone call I had promised to make. The image of their Black excellence community standing was worth more to them than saving Monnique from this scene. For the first time in her 30 years of life, my sister, their golden child, was utterly alone. She had no one to charm, no one to manipulate, no one to bail her out. She had to sit on that cold airport floor and face the consequences of her own actions. I watched the video loop once more. The sound was turned off, but I could imagine her screams. I felt Maya lean her head against my arm. I shut the tablet. I did not need to see any more. I did not follow up on Monnique's life after that day. I did not have to. News has a way of traveling, especially bad news. Especially in a community like ours that thrives on reputation and appearances. I heard about it through the grapevine, from a distant cousin who still spoke to my mother occasionally. Monnique was buried. She was not just broke, she was buried in debt. The trip to Dubai was not her first financial disaster. It was just her last. The creditors she had been dodging for years, the credit card companies, the high-interest personal loans. They all came calling at once, with no Chad to protect her, and no family willing to bail her out. She was forced to declare Chapter 7 bankruptcy. Her assets were seized, the designer clothes, the jewelry. The car my parents had bought her years ago. All of it was liquidated to pay pennies on the dollar to the people she had scammed. The millionaire investor who had been sipping champagne in first class was now legally worth nothing. Less than nothing. I heard she is working now. She has a job. Not at a high-end boutique. Not as an event planner for Atlanta's elite social circles. She is working at a coffee shop. A small cafe in a strip mall out near the airport. She wears a polyester apron. She asks people if they want room for cream. The humiliation for someone so obsessed with status and image must be a daily grinding punishment, but the consequences did not stop at financial ruin. Her other creditors, the ones from before she stole from me, they filed their own civil suits, the judge seeing her long history of financial manipulation and her clear instability did not just rule on the money. He ordered her into mandatory psychological evaluation. He ordered court-supervised financial therapy. She has to attend 3 sessions a week, every single week, learning about impulse control and financial responsibility. A 30-year-old woman being taught how to balance a checkbook like a teenager, and my parents, they are suffering their own quiet deserved punishment. My mother cannot stand the public shame. Her golden child is now the family secret. The failure she cannot brag about at the country club. I know they still see her. I know they are still caught in that toxic, unbreakable loop of enabling her. My aunt told me that my mother Janice drives her Mercedes out to that suburban strip mall once a week. She does not go inside the cafe. She waits in the parking lot, and Monnique on her break comes out. My mother slips her a $100 bill, like a clandestine drug deal. They are still giving her money. Pocket money, just enough for groceries, but not enough to fix her life. They do it in secret. They are terrified that I will find out. They are more afraid of me and the social ruin I represent than they are of Monnique's manipulations. They will not dare pay off her larger debts. They will not co-sign a lease for her. They will not buy her a new car. Their fear of me is now stronger than their pathological need to rescue her. That for me is the real justice. The system is finally broken. I took that $170,000 and I did exactly what I should have done years ago. I stopped being responsible Kesha. I stopped being the family's safety net. I stopped being the one they ignored until they needed bailing out. I walked into my manager's office. I gave my 2 weeks' notice, and I never looked back at that dead-end data analyst job again. I took every penny of my stolen and recovered inheritance, and I invested it in my one true undeniable asset, my daughter. Today I am not sitting in a beige cubicle staring at spreadsheets that go nowhere. I am standing in our new office. It is a bright open-plan space in Atlanta's tech district, all glass and white oak. It is buzzing with the quiet energy of creation. Sunlight streams through the floor-to-ceiling windows. It gleams off the polished concrete floors, the sign on the glass entryway, the one I approved myself. It reads Vance Maya Cyber Solutions. Out on the main floor, our team of young, diverse engineers are working. They are the best graduates I could recruit from Georgia Tech. They are focused on their massive curved monitors. They are writing code that will protect billions of dollars in assets. And right now, I am in the main conference room. I am Kesha Vance, Chief Executive Officer, and standing next to me with her feet dangling slightly from the tall chair is Maya, my 9-year-old daughter, our official Chief Innovation Officer. We are on a video call that is projected onto a 90-inch screen. On the other end are three stone-faced executives from a major financial institution. Maya says in a voice that is clear and high that the vulnerability in your current system is not in the firewall. It is in the transaction API. The encryption protocol you are using is outdated. I was able to breach it in under 45 minutes. The lead executive is a man in his 50s. He leans forward. His expression is stunned. He says 45 minutes. Our internal team said that breach was impossible. I step forward, taking my cue. I say what Maya has developed is a new quantum-resistant encryption model. It does not just patch the hole. It rebuilds the entire foundation. Our solution is not just safer, it is faster and scalable. I watch the executives on the screen. I see the exact moment their skepticism melts into raw, hungry interest. This is a multi-million-dollar contract, and a 9-year-old just closed the deal. I did not just get my money back. I did not just get justice for my sister's betrayal. I used that fire to forge an entirely new future. A legacy, not the one my parents wanted, but the one my daughter deserved. We were not just surviving anymore. We were building an empire. We are not in that cramped apartment anymore. 6 months have passed. Tonight dinner is in our new home, a penthouse condo overlooking Piedmont Park. The Atlanta skyline glitters outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. The smell of roasted chicken and garlic fills the air. It is not just a new apartment, it is a new life, bought and paid for by Vance Maya Cyber Solutions. Maya is sitting at the kitchen island. Her laptop is open next to her plate. She is giggling. I ask while trying to sound stern but failing as a smile tugs at my lips if she really told the executive from the bank that his password was a sad joke. She says, not looking up, that it was Mom. He was using password 2234. She adds that she told him she was surprised he had not been robbed already. She says, I think he was scared. I say, I think you are right. I laugh, we are laughing. It feels good. My family is still out there. I hear about them sometimes. They exist hovering on the periphery of my life. But they have no power over me. They cannot touch me. They cannot hurt me. That night when I faced them down, I did not just take back my money. I took back my power. I finally realized that family is not just the people you are forced to be related to. It is not an obligation to be hurt and used and then dismissed. It is not about blood. I learned that family is not who you are born with. It is about who you are willing to protect. My 9-year-old daughter taught me that lesson. My parents and my sister. They would have watched Maya and me become homeless just to protect their own pride and their precious, perfect, broken, golden child. But Maya, my quiet, brilliant, terrifying daughter, she went to war for us. Monnique stole $170,000. She tried to steal our future, but Maya showed me my true worth. She showed me what we were worth. And that right there is a payoff no amount of money, no investment, no inheritance could ever buy. I place a plate of chicken and roasted asparagus in front of her. She is still typing. Her brow is furrowed in that intense concentration I now know so well. I say gently, Maya baby, time to eat. I touch her shoulder. She looks up from the screen. Her eyes are bright. She says in a voice that is completely serious, Mom, I think I just found a backdoor vulnerability in the Pentagon's main firewall. I look at her, I look at the plate of food. I look at my 9-year-old daughter who has just casually mentioned an act of high treason. I let out a long, slow sigh. It is the sigh of a mother who has seen it all. But this time it is full of love and just a little bit of terror. I say, after dinner, baby. I push the plate closer to her. I say, eat your asparagus. You can compromise national security after you finish your vegetables. She smiles, and for the first time in my entire life, everything is perfect. This story teaches us that family is not defined by blood, but by loyalty and protection. Kesha was betrayed by her sister and dismissed by her enabling parents who blamed her for the crisis. She was trapped in the role of the responsible one, but her worth was constantly ignored. The betrayal forced her to stop seeking their approval and set firm boundaries. Her true asset was the one they never saw. Her brilliant daughter, Maya. Together they turned a devastating loss into a powerful new future, proving that your value is not what toxic people assign to you, but what you build for yourself. The relationships that drain you are not obligations. The people who protect you are your real family. Kesha learned that being the responsible one meant being responsible for her own happiness and her daughter's future, not for enabling the people who hurt her. When family becomes toxic, boundaries are not cruel, they are survival. Maya did not just save their money, she saved their future from people who would have sacrificed it without hesitation. Sometimes the smallest person in your life is the one with the biggest heart and the clearest vision. True strength is not about fixing everyone else's problems. It is about protecting what matters most, and sometimes justice is not about revenge. It is about walking away from the people who never valued you and building something they could never destroy. Kesha stopped waiting for her family to see her worth. She started showing her daughter that worth is something you claim for yourself, not something you beg others to recognize. The golden child was always destined to fall. Because people who never face consequences never learn to stand on their own. Kesha's parents will spend the rest of their lives knowing they chose wrong. That is a punishment no court could ever impose. In the end, Kesha did not just survive her family's betrayal. She used it as fuel to build a life they could never touch. She proved that the quiet, responsible one was never weak. She was just waiting for the right moment to show everyone exactly how strong she really was. And when that moment came, she did not just win. She rebuilt everything from the ground up, better, stronger, and completely on her own terms. The weeks after my confrontation with my parents passed in a strange new rhythm. It was the rhythm of a life finally lived on my own terms. Every morning I woke up in our new penthouse with sunlight streaming through windows that overlooked a city I was now conquering rather than just surviving in. Every morning, Maya sat at the breakfast table with her tablet displaying lines of code that would make most adult programmers weep with inadequacy. And every morning, I reminded myself that I had done it. I had broken free. The business grew faster than I could have imagined. Word spreads quickly in the corporate world when you can do what others claim is impossible. When a 9-year-old girl can breach systems that billion-dollar companies swear are impenetrable, you get attention. We got attention. Vance Maya Cyber Solutions became the name whispered in boardrooms, the company that could find the holes no one else could see, the company led by a mother-daughter team that seemed to operate on an entirely different level. We were not just successful, we were becoming legendary. I hired carefully. I brought on talent that understood what we were building was not just a company, it was a statement. Every person I hired was someone who had been overlooked. Someone told they were not good enough. Someone who had been the responsible one in their own family, the one taken for granted. I built a team of people who understood what it meant to be underestimated. And together we became unstoppable. Maya thrived. She was not just our Chief Innovation Officer in title, she was the real deal. She attended meetings with executives 3 times her age, and she held her own. She explained complex security protocols with the patience of a teacher and the authority of someone who had already proven she knew more than everyone else in the room. She was 9 years old, and she was changing the industry. But more importantly, she was happy. She smiled more. She laughed more. She was free from the weight of our old life, the life where we counted pennies and feared the mailbox and waited for the next disaster. I made sure she still had a childhood, ballet lessons on Tuesdays, art class on Thursdays, birthday parties with school friends who had no idea their friend was a cybersecurity prodigy. I protected her childhood fiercely. I refused to let her brilliance steal her youth. She could hack international banks and then come home and watch cartoons. She could close million-dollar deals and then play with dolls. She deserved both worlds, and I made sure she had them. As for my parents, they faded into the background like old wallpaper. I saw my mother once from a distance at a charity gala I had been invited to as a rising business leader. She saw me too. Our eyes met across the crowded room. She looked older, tired. There was something broken in her expression, something that told me she understood what she had lost. She had chosen Monnique, she had chosen wrong, and now she was standing in a room watching her other daughter. The responsible one, the one she dismissed, that daughter was now being celebrated as one of Atlanta's most innovative entrepreneurs. I did not go over to her. I did not acknowledge her beyond that brief eye contact. I simply turned away and continued my conversation with a potential client. She was a stranger now, a woman I used to know, nothing more. My father I heard about through business channels. His small accounting firm was struggling. Losing clients. I heard whispers that his reputation had taken a hit. Nothing public, nothing provable, just the slow, quiet slide that happens when people start to question your judgment. When they start to wonder what kind of man raises a daughter who commits international wire fraud. When they start to wonder what kind of man sends money to a scam artist. His empire of respect was crumbling, not because I destroyed it, but because he destroyed it himself. Monnique I heard about through my aunt. The updates came every few months, always grim, always predictable. She was still working at the coffee shop, still living in a tiny studio apartment that my parents paid for, but would not admit to paying for, still drowning in debt, still on probation from the court-ordered therapy, still broken. My aunt told me that Monnique asked about me once, asked if I was doing okay, asked if Maya was happy. My aunt said Monnique cried when she heard about the business. Not tears of joy, tears of envy, tears of regret, tears of someone realizing that the person they robbed had taken that robbery and turned it into rocket fuel. I felt nothing when I heard that, not satisfaction. Not pity, just nothing. She was a chapter I had closed, a cautionary tale I would one day tell Maya when she was old enough to understand the full scope of what had happened. But for now she was just a name, a person who used to matter. I focused on what did matter, growing the business, raising my daughter, building relationships with people who valued me. I started dating again, nothing serious, just reminders that I was a woman in my 30s with a whole life ahead of me. I went to dinners, I went to shows. I remembered what it felt like to be wanted. Not needed, not used, but wanted. It felt good. The company hit a major milestone 6 months after we launched. We secured a contract with a national bank. $20 million over 3 years, the biggest deal we had ever closed. The day the contract was signed, I took Meyer out for ice cream. We sat on a bench in Piedmont Park, the same park we could now see from our penthouse windows. And I told her how proud I was, not just of her brilliance, but of her heart. She had saved us, not just financially, but in every way that mattered. She looked at me with those serious eyes, eyes that had seen too much for a 9-year-old but had remained kind despite it all. She said, "Mom, I just did what you taught me." I asked what I taught her. She said, "You taught me that family protects family, real family, not the people who say they are family, the people who act like it." I hugged her right there on that bench with ice cream dripping onto our hands. I hugged her and I cried, happy tears, grateful tears, tears of someone who had walked through fire and come out holding the only thing that mattered. 1 year after Monnique stole from me, I was sitting in a television studio. A local news station wanted to do a feature on Vance Maya Cyber Solutions, the youngest chief innovation officer in the country. The mother-daughter duo taking on corporate America. It was a puff piece, designed to be inspiring, but I knew it would do more than inspire. I knew my parents would see it. I knew Monnique would see it. And I wanted them to, not because I wanted to hurt them, but because I wanted them to know. I wanted them to see exactly what they had lost. The interview aired on a Friday evening. Meyer and I watched it together on our massive television in our beautiful living room. The interviewer asked Maya what inspired her. Maya smiled and said my mom. She said my mom showed me that when people try to break you, you have a choice. You can stay broken or you can build something unbreakable. The interviewer asked me what I would say to other single mothers struggling to make it. I looked directly at the camera. I said you are stronger than you know, and the people who underestimate you are giving you the greatest gift. They are getting out of your way. Let them, then build something so big they cannot ignore it, and when they come back, and they will come back, you get to decide if you let them in. You get to decide your worth. Not them. The segment ended. Maya and I sat in silence. Then my phone rang. It was a number I did not recognize. I answered. It was my mother. Her voice was small, broken. She said, "Kesha, I saw the interview. You look so successful, so happy." I said, "Thank you." There was a long pause. She said, "I know I do not deserve to ask, but could we talk? Could we maybe have coffee? I miss you. I miss Maya." I looked at my daughter. She was watching me, waiting. I thought about everything, the theft, the betrayal, the hanging up on me when I begged for help, the sending money to Monnique after she robbed me, the choosing her over and over and over again. I thought about the year I had just lived, the year of freedom, of success, of peace. I said, "Mom, I do not think that is a good idea." She started to cry. She said, "Please, Kesha, I made mistakes, we made mistakes. But you are my daughter, you are my family." I said quietly but firmly, "No, Mom, Monnique is your family. She is the one you chose. I am just the responsible one who finally stopped being responsible for everyone else's happiness." I continued saying, "I am happy now. Maya is happy. We have a life, a good life, and I need to protect that. I need to protect her from people who would hurt us, even if those people are family, especially if those people are family." My mother sobbed. She said, "You cannot mean that." I said, "I do. I said maybe one day things will be different, but not today, not anytime soon. You made your choice. Now I am making mine." I hung up. Maya asked if I was okay. I said, "Yes, baby, I am more than okay." She nodded. She understood. We went back to watching television. We ordered pizza. We laughed. We were okay, better than okay. We were free. The years passed. The business grew. Maya grew. She became not just a prodigy but a legend. By the time she was 12, she was speaking at conferences. By 13, she had patents in her name. By 14, she was being courted by universities who wanted her to skip high school and come directly to them. I said no, she would have a childhood, she would have friends and proms and football games, she would have normalcy, the brilliance could wait, it would still be there when she was ready. She thanked me for that. She said, "Mom, you gave me something Aunt Monnique never had. You gave me boundaries, you gave me consequences, you gave me love that was not conditional on me being perfect. You let me be human." I cried when she said that. Because I realized she was right. I had broken the cycle. I had stopped being my mother. I had stopped enabling. I had stopped sacrificing myself on the altar of family obligation. I had chosen my daughter over everything else. And in doing so I had saved us both. Monnique, I heard, got married to a man she met at the coffee shop, a regular customer. He was not rich. He was not a con artist. He was just a regular guy who saw a broken woman and decided to love her anyway. My aunt said they were happy, struggling, poor, but happy. I was glad, not for me, but for her. She had finally hit rock bottom hard enough to stop digging. She had finally found something real. I hoped it lasted. I genuinely did. My parents, I heard, were selling their house, downsizing, the money they sent Monnique, the damage to my father's business. It had caught up with them. They were not destitute, but they were no longer the pillars of the community they once were. They were just another retired couple making ends meet. I felt nothing about that either, not satisfaction, not pity, just acceptance. They made their choices. These were the consequences. As for me, I kept building. I kept growing. I kept protecting my daughter. I kept choosing happiness over obligation. I kept choosing peace over family drama. I kept choosing us, and in doing so I found something I never expected. I found that the family I had always wanted was the one I had built myself, Meyer and me, our team at Vance Maya Cyber Solutions, the people who chose to be in our lives because they wanted to be, not because they had to be. That was family, that was love, that was enough, more than enough, it was everything. Maya turned 16 on a bright Saturday morning in April. We celebrated in our penthouse with a small group of her closest friends from school. Normal teenage girls who giggled over boys and complained about homework and had no idea their friend had more money in her bank account than most adults would earn in a lifetime. I watched her blow out the candles on her cake. She was no longer the quiet, serious 9-year-old who had sat on the kitchen floor and told me she would handle it. She was a young woman now, beautiful, confident, still brilliant but softer somehow. More at peace that night after her friends left and the apartment was quiet again, she came and sat next to me on the sofa. She said, "Mom, can I ask you something?" I said, "Of course, baby, anything." She hesitated. Then she said, "Do you ever think about Aunt Monnique? Do you ever wonder if we did the right thing?" I had been waiting for this question for years. I knew it would come eventually. I took a deep breath. I said, "I think about her sometimes, not often, but sometimes. I think about what happened. I think about the choices everyone made, and yes, I think we did the right thing." She asked, "How can you be sure?" I said, "Because the alternative was letting her destroy us. It was enabling her. It was teaching you that family means letting people hurt you over and over again. It was showing you that your worth is less than someone else's comfort." I could not do that. I would not do that. Maya nodded slowly. She said, "I looked her up last week, online. She has a Facebook page. She looks happy. She has kids now, 2 little boys." I felt something twist in my chest. Not quite pain, not quite regret. Something else. I said, "That is good. I am glad she found happiness." Maya said, "Do you think she ever thinks about us, about what she did?" I said, "Honestly, I do not know. Maybe, maybe not, but it does not matter anymore. What matters is that we are okay. We are more than okay. We built something beautiful from the ashes of what she tried to destroy. That is what matters." She leaned her head on my shoulder. She said, "I love you, Mom. You saved us." I kissed the top of her head. I said, "No, baby. We saved each other." The years continued to unfold. Maya graduated high school as valedictorian. She gave a speech that made the entire auditorium cry. She talked about resilience, about family, about the woman who taught her that strength is not about never falling. It is about always getting back up. She went to MIT, full scholarship, not that we needed it financially, but she earned it. She wanted to earn it. She came home every holiday, every summer. She never forgot where she came from. She never forgot what we had been through. By the time Maya was 20, Vance Maya Cyber Solutions was worth over $100 million. We had offices in 5 cities. We employed over 200 people. We were leaders in the industry. Innovators, game changers. I was 44 years old. I had gray hair starting at my temples. I had laugh lines around my eyes. I had a life I never dreamed possible. One evening I was working late in my office. The city lights twinkled below. My phone rang. It was a number I had not seen in years, but I recognized it immediately. It was my father. I stared at the phone for a long moment. Then I answered. I said hello. His voice was old, frail. He said, "Kesha, it is Dad." I said, "I know." There was a long silence. He said, "Your mother is sick. She has been sick for a while. Breast cancer, stage 4. She does not have much time left. She wants to see you. She wants to see Maya." I closed my eyes. I felt that old familiar ache, the one I thought I had buried. I said, "I am sorry to hear that." He said, "Will you come? Please, she is asking for you every day. She wants to make things right before she goes." I said, "Dad, I do not think that is possible." He started to cry. This man who had roared at me, who had hung up on me, who had chosen Monnique over me again and again. He was crying. He said, "Please, Kesha, I know we failed you. I know we hurt you, but she is dying. She is your mother. She loves you. She always has, even when she did not show it, even when she made the wrong choices. She loves you." I felt tears running down my own face. I said, "I need to think about it. I need to talk to Maya." He said, "Okay, okay, please just think about it. We do not have much time." He gave me the name of the hospital, the room number, then he hung up. I sat in my office for hours. I watched the city lights blur through my tears. I thought about everything, the betrayal, the years of being second, the moment they chose Monnique over my daughter's education. Over our home, I thought about the boundaries I had set, the life I had built, the peace I had found, and I thought about my mother dying in a hospital bed asking for me. I went home. I told Maya. She listened quietly. Then she said, "Mom, what do you want to do?" I said, "I do not know." She said, "Do you want to see her?" I said, "Part of me does. Part of me wants to hear her say she is sorry, that she was wrong, that she sees me now. But part of me knows it might not change anything. It might just hurt." Maya took my hand. She said, "Then we go and we listen. We let her say what she needs to say, and then we decide. We decide if it is enough. We decide if we forgive, but we give her the chance because you are not her. You are better than her, and that is what better people do." I looked at my daughter, this incredible young woman, and I realized she was right. 2 days later, we walked into the hospital. My mother was in a private room. My father was sitting beside her bed. He looked up when we entered. He looked old, broken. He stood. He said, "Kesha, Maya, thank you for coming." I nodded. I could not speak. We approached the bed. My mother was a shadow of herself, thin, pale. Her hair was gone from the chemotherapy, but her eyes were the same. She looked at me. She started to cry. She whispered, "Kiki, my baby." I stood there. I did not go to her. I waited. She said, "I am so sorry. I am so sorry for everything, for choosing Monnique, for not protecting you, for not seeing you. I was wrong. I was so wrong. And I have spent every day since regretting it. I watched you on television. I read about your company. I saw what you built, what you and Maya built together, and I realized I missed it all. I missed your success. I missed watching Maya grow up. I missed being your mother because I was too busy being Monnique's enabler. I failed you, and I am sorry." I felt Maya squeeze my hand. I said, "Why? Why did you choose her?" My mother closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face. She said, "Because she needed me, and you did not. You were always so strong, so capable, so responsible. I thought you did not need me. I thought you would be okay without me, but Monnique, she was always falling, always failing. I thought if I did not catch her, she would be lost forever. So I caught her again and again, and in doing so I lost you. I realize that now. I lost my strong, capable, beautiful daughter because I was so busy saving the one who did not want to be saved. I asked, "Is she here? Is Monnique here?" My father said no. "She knows your mother is sick." But they had a falling out. She asked for money again. We said no. She got angry. "She has not been back." My mother sobbed. She said I pushed everyone away for her, and in the end she left anyway. I have nothing. No daughters. No relationship with my granddaughter. I am dying alone because of the choices I made. She looked at me. She said, "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in ways that cannot be fixed. But I need you to know, I see you now. I see what I missed. I see what I lost, and I am sorry. I am so, so sorry." I stood there. I felt 16 years of anger, of hurt, of rejection. It was all there. All still fresh, but I also felt something else. I felt tired of carrying it, tired of holding on to it. I looked at Maya. She nodded, giving me permission, telling me it was okay, whatever I chose. I took a step forward. I sat on the edge of the bed. I took my mother's thin hand. I said, "I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. I deserve to let this go. I forgive you, Mom. But I cannot forget. I cannot pretend the last 16 years did not happen. I cannot give you back the relationship we could have had. That is gone, but I can give you this. I can sit here with you." I can let you meet the woman Maya has become. I can let you see what we built without you, and I can let you go knowing that I do not hate you. I forgive you. My mother gripped my hand. She said, "Thank you. Thank you, my darling girl. That is more than I deserve." We stayed for 2 hours. We told her about the business, about Maya's achievements, about our life. She listened. She smiled. She cried. She told us she was proud, that she loved us, that she wished she could go back and do everything differently. When we left, she said, "Kiki." I said, "Yes, Mom." She said, "You are the strongest woman I know. You are everything I should have been. I am so proud of you. Do not ever forget that. You were always enough." I just could not see it. I kissed her forehead. I said, "Good-bye, Mom." She died 3 days later, peacefully in her sleep with my father by her side. I did not cry at the funeral. I had already done my grieving years ago. I stood next to Maya. We watched them lower the casket. Monnique was there. She stood far away from us. She looked older, tired. She caught my eye. She mouthed, "I am sorry." I nodded. I did not go to her. I did not need to. After the service, my father approached us. He said, "Thank you for coming. Thank you for giving her peace at the end." I said she was my mother. Despite everything, she was my mother. He nodded. He said, "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness either. I made the same mistakes she did. Worse maybe, but I want you to know I see it now too. I see what I lost, and I am sorry." I said, "I know, Dad. I forgive you too, but like I told Mom, forgiveness does not mean forgetting. It does not mean we go back to how things were. It means I release the anger. I let go of the hurt, but the relationship we could have had, that is gone." He nodded, tears in his eyes. He said, "I understand. I just want you to know you turned out better than any of us. You are a better mother, a better person, a better everything. I am proud of you, Kesha, even if I have no right to be." We left, Meyer and I. We drove home in silence. When we got to the penthouse, she said, "Are you okay, Mom?" I said, "Yes, baby. I really am." She said, "Do you regret forgiving them?" I said, "No. Forgiveness was not for them. It was for me. It was letting go of the weight I have been carrying. It was choosing peace over bitterness. It was showing you that being strong does not mean holding grudges forever. It means knowing when to let go." She hugged me. She said, "You are the strongest person I know." I said, "I learned from the best." "I learned from you? You saved us, Maya. That day when you were 9 years old and you told me you would handle it. You saved us." She said, "We saved each other, Mom. That is what family does." 5 years after my mother's death, Maya graduated from MIT with dual degrees in computer science and cybersecurity. She was 23 years old. She had offers from every major tech company in the world. Google, Apple, Microsoft, they all wanted her. She turned them all down. She came home to Atlanta. She walked into my office at Vance Maya Cyber Solutions. She said, "Mom, I have been thinking." I looked up from my computer. I said, "About what, baby?" She said, "About the company, about our future. I want to expand. I want to take everything we have built and make it bigger. I want to create a foundation, the Vance Foundation. I want to help other single mothers who have been betrayed by their families. I want to provide scholarships for their kids. I want to give them the same chance you gave me." I stared at her, my incredible daughter. I said, "That is a beautiful idea." She said, "I also think we should bring on a new partner, someone who understands what we went through, someone who has been there." I asked who. She hesitated. Then she said, "Aunt Monnique." I felt like I had been punched. I said, "What?" She said, "Mom, hear me out. I have been watching her. She has changed. She really has. She has been clean for 10 years. No scams, no schemes. She works 2 jobs. She takes care of her kids. She is in therapy, real therapy. She has done the work, and I think she could help other women avoid the mistakes she made. I think her story combined with yours could save people." I said, "Meyer, I do not know if I can do that." She said, "I am not asking you to forgive and forget. I am not asking you to be best friends. I am asking you to consider giving her a chance to make amends, to do something good with the worst thing she ever did. You taught me that people can change if they want to, that redemption is possible if someone does the work. I think she has done the work, Mom. I think she deserves a chance." I sat back in my chair. I thought about the woman who stole from me, who tried to destroy us. I thought about the years of anger and hurt, but I also thought about the woman at the funeral, the one who mouthed "I am sorry," the one who stayed away out of respect for my boundaries. I thought about forgiveness, about redemption, about second chances. I said, "Let me think about it." Maya nodded. She said, "Take your time, Mom. I am not going anywhere." And neither are you. We have built something unbreakable. Nothing can touch that, not even this. A week later I called Monnique. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was cautious. She said, "Kesha." I said, "Hello, Monnique." There was a long silence. She said, "I did not expect to hear from you." I said, "Maya wants to bring you into the foundation we are starting. She thinks you could help other women. Women who have made the same mistakes you did." She was quiet. Then she said, "Why would you let me do that, after everything I did to you?" I said, "Because Maya believes people can change, and I believe in Maya." "But I need to know, have you changed? Are you really different?" She started to cry. She said, "Yes, God, yes. I am not the same person I was. I have spent the last 16 years trying to become someone my kids can be proud of. Someone I can be proud of. I go to therapy 3 times a week. I work my jobs. I pay my bills. I do not lie. I do not scheme. I am just trying to be a good person, a decent person. I know I do not deserve your forgiveness. I know I destroyed us, but if you are offering me a chance, any chance, to make something good come from the worst thing I ever did, I will take it. I will work harder than I have ever worked. I will prove to you that I have changed." I said, "This is not about proving anything to me, Monnique. This is about helping people. If you come work for the foundation, you will have to tell your story. All of it, the stealing, the lying, the consequences. You will have to be honest in a way you have never been before. Can you do that?" She said, "Yes, I can do that. If it helps even one person avoid the mistakes I made. If it helps even one family stay together. I can do that." I said, "Okay, we will start small. You will work part-time. You will share your story. You will mentor women in the program. But Monnique, if you lie, if you steal, if you do anything that jeopardizes what Maya and I have built, you are out. No second chances, no excuses. This is it." She said, "I understand. Thank you, Kesha. Thank you for giving me a chance I do not deserve." I said, "Do not thank me. Thank Maya, and do not let her down." She said, "I won't. I promise." I kept my word. Monnique started working for the Vance Foundation 6 months later. She was nervous at first, unsure, but she showed up every day. She told her story to groups of women who had been betrayed by family. Women who had been stolen from, women who were struggling to rebuild. She was honest, brutally honest. She talked about the entitlement, the justifications, the lies she told herself. She talked about how she destroyed her family, how she lost everything, how she spent years in poverty and shame before she finally got help. And the women listened. They saw themselves in her. Some saw their sisters, their daughters, their friends. They saw what happens when you enable someone. What happens when you choose the wrong person over and over. They saw the consequences, and it changed them. The foundation grew. We helped hundreds of women. We provided scholarships, legal aid, therapy, job training. We gave them the tools to rebuild their lives after betrayal, and Monnique was part of that. She worked hard. She never missed a day. She never lied. She kept her promise. Slowly over years, a strange thing happened. I began to see her not as the person who betrayed me, but as a person who had done a terrible thing and spent the rest of her life trying to make it right. We were not close, we were not sisters in the way we once were, but we were colleagues. We were 2 women working toward the same goal, and that was enough. One day she came to my office. She said, "Kesha, can we talk?" I said, "Of course, sit down." She sat. She looked nervous. She said, "I want you to know I am grateful. Every single day I am grateful you gave me this chance, this opportunity to do something good, to be part of something bigger than myself. I know I do not deserve it, but I want you to know it saved me. This foundation, this work, it gave me a purpose. It gave me a way to live with what I did." I said, "Monnique, you are doing good work. You are helping people." That is all that matters now. She said, I also want to say I am sorry. I know I have said it before, but I need to say it again. I am sorry for stealing from you. I am sorry for betraying you. I am sorry for being the reason you almost lost everything. I am sorry for the years of pain I caused. I cannot take it back. I cannot fix it. But I want you to know I see it now. I see what I did, and I am sorry I looked at her, this woman who was once my sister, who was once my nightmare. I said I forgive you, Monnique. I forgave you a long time ago, not because you earned it, but because I needed to for me, for Maya, for my own peace, she nodded, tears streaming down her face. She said, thank you. That is more than I deserve. I said maybe, but it is what I am giving you. Use it. Keep doing the work. Keep helping people. That is your redemption. That is how you make this right. She said, I will. I promise. Maya walked in then. She looked at both of us. She said, everything okay in here? I said, yes, baby. Everything is okay. Maya smiled. She said, good, because I have news. We have been invited to speak at the United Nations. About the foundation, about what we have built, about helping women recover from financial abuse. I felt my heart swell with pride. I said, that is incredible. She said, I know, and I want both of you there. Mom and Aunt Monnique, both of your stories, the person who was betrayed and the person who betrayed, both sides, both perspectives, that is what makes our message powerful. I looked at Monnique, she looked at me. She said I would be honored if you are comfortable with that, Kesha. I said yes, let us do it. Let us show the world what redemption looks like, what forgiveness looks like, what strength looks like. 6 months later, we stood on a stage in front of representatives from dozens of countries. I told my story, how I was betrayed, how I almost lost everything, how my daughter saved us. Monnique told her story. How she stole, how she justified it, how she lost everything, how she spent years rebuilding. Maya told our story, how we turned tragedy into triumph, how we built an empire from ashes, how we created a foundation to help others do the same. The audience gave us a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of women approached us. They thanked us. They told us their own stories of betrayal and survival. They said our story gave them hope. That night, Maya and I sat in our hotel room overlooking the city. She said, Mom, do you ever think about where we would be if Aunt Monnique had not stolen from us? I said, honestly, yes, sometimes. She said, where do you think we would be? I said, probably still in that cramped apartment. I would probably still be at that dead-end job. You would probably still be just another smart kid, not the force of nature you became. She said so in a weird way. She saved us. By trying to destroy us, she actually freed us. I thought about that. I said maybe, or maybe we saved ourselves. Maybe we took the worst thing that ever happened to us, and we decided it was not going to break us. We decided to use it, to learn from it, to grow from it. That was our choice, not hers. She said, I like that better. She leaned her head on my shoulder. She said, Mom, I am proud of us. I said, me too, baby, me too. We sat in silence, looking out at the city lights, thinking about how far we had come from a kitchen floor covered in broken coffee mugs and shattered dreams to a stage at the United Nations, from bankruptcy and betrayal to $100 million company and a foundation changing lives. From being victims to being survivors to being victors. I thought about my parents, gone now. I hoped they were at peace. I hoped they understood. I thought about Monnique, working every day to make amends. I hoped she found peace too. But mostly I thought about Maya, my incredible daughter, the one who saved us, the one who showed me what family really means. And I realized that everything we went through, all the pain, all the betrayal, all the heartbreak, it was worth it, because it brought us here to this moment, to this life, to this unbreakable bond. We were not just survivors. We were warriors. We were proof that you can be betrayed by the people who are supposed to love you most, and you can still rise, you can still thrive, you can still build something beautiful. We were proof that family is not who you are born to. It is who you choose, who chooses you, who protects you, who fights for you. We were proof that the responsible one is not weak. She is just waiting for her moment, and when that moment comes, she does not just survive. She conquers. Maya fell asleep on my shoulder. I sat there holding her, my baby girl who was not a baby anymore. I thought about the 9-year-old who sat at a kitchen table and hacked an international bank to save her mother. I thought about the teenager who convinced me to give her aunt a second chance. I thought about the woman she had become, strong, compassionate, brilliant, fierce. I whispered thank you for saving us. Thank you for teaching me what strength really looks like. Thank you for being my family, the real kind, the kind that matters. Outside the city sparkled, full of possibility, full of promise, full of life. Our life, the one we built together, the one no one could ever take from us, and I smiled because I realized something. I had spent so many years feeling like I was not enough, like I was the backup, the safety net, the responsible one who did not matter, but I was wrong. I was always enough. I was always strong. I was always worthy. I just needed to be pushed off a cliff to realize I could fly, and when I did fly, I soared. Outro. This story is not just about revenge, it is about truth, pain, and rising stronger than before. If this hit your heart, then you know what to do. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more real stories that burn like fire. Until next time, stay sharp, stay loud, stay rebel.